21 candles burned on the cake in front of me, but the real gift wasn't the icing or the flame, it was the folder the family lawyer slid across the table. Inside, trust release documents, apartment keys, a private bank card, and a cold legal notice confirming that my guardianship to the Ashford family ended at the stroke of midnight. I sat at the long dining table of Ashford Manor, the same table where I'd eaten 3 years of dinners feeling like a guest who overstayed. And across from me, 4 women watched me with expressions I could not read. Alexandra Ashford, the CEO who once bought an entire school wing just because I mentioned the design studio had bad lighting, sat at the head with a diamond watch that could fund a small country. Victoria Ashford, the prosecutor who spoke to me as if every sentence needed a footnote and a witness, folded her hands like she was about to cross-examine the cake. Serena Ashford, the surgeon who checked my pulse more often than she smiled, stared at my untouched plate with clinical concern. Celeste Ashford, the famous violinist who had called me annoying for 3 solid years yet still carried the crooked wooden bookmark I carved for her on every world tour, looked everywhere except at me. I thought they had waited for this night to finally set me free, so I picked up the fountain pen and signed every page without a single pause. Then I stood, bowed my head like I'd been taught, and said the words I had rehearsed in my head for weeks: "Thank you for raising me. I will leave before breakfast. Alexandra, Victoria, Serena, Celeste, I will not trouble my sisters anymore." 4 chairs scraped the floor at once. Alexandra's wineglass hit the table with a crack, Victoria's perfect composure fractured for 1 raw second. Serena looked ready to drag me into an operating room, and Celeste's eyes filled with tears and fury so fast it was like a storm breaking. Then all 4 of them said the same impossible thing, in unison, like they'd rehearsed their own script: "Do not call me sister." Chapter 1: The birthday papers were never a gift. Ashford Manor from the outside didn't look like a home, it looked like a fortress where old money went to sharpen its teeth on the bones of the less fortunate. The main house sprawled across 30 private acres north of New York City, all gray stone and towering windows and iron gates that probably had better legal representation than I ever did. The first time I walked through those gates, I was 18, freshly orphaned, still carrying the phantom ache of my parents' accident, and hauling everything I owned in 2 cheap duffel bags that were already falling apart. 3 years later, I sat at that same family table on my 21st birthday with a fountain pen in my fist and a cream-colored legal folder that looked more like a wedding invitation than a termination notice. Across the table sat the 4 women I had called my sisters, not by blood. Never by blood, and the Ashfords had made that distinction crystal clear in every polite society conversation and every legal document they ever drafted. I was not an heir, not a son, not a brother in the way blood families used that word. I was Ethan Walker, the son of Eleanor Ashford's late friend, taken in after my parents died and my own recovery left me with no home, no money, and no clue how to keep standing. Eleanor had given me a room, tuition, medical care, and a seat at her table, but her daughters had given me something else entirely: distance, elegant and expensive distance, wrapped in private school admissions and security drivers and cold voices that rarely softened into anything warm. Alexandra sat at the left head of the table in a black silk blouse that probably cost more than my first year of rent, 28 years old and already the CEO of Ashford Holdings, with the kind of beauty that made people sit straighter before she even spoke. Her hair was dark, her eyes were pale blue, and her expression suggested she had never once lost a negotiation, a schedule, or a single heartbeat in her entire life. Victoria sat beside her, 27. An assistant district attorney in Manhattan, with auburn hair pulled back and calm gray eyes that could make a dinner question sound like a cross-examination in a felony trial. Serena sat third, 25. A surgeon at a private hospital, wearing a simple white dress and looking at the dessert table like sugar was a personal insult to her medical ethics. Her concern always came wrapped in criticism, schedules, and quiet threats about cholesterol, but I had learned to read between those sharp lines. Celeste sat closest to me, 23, the youngest Ashford daughter, international violin sensation, fashion campaign darling, and the only person I knew who could insult someone while looking like a perfume ad that had come to life. She had golden brown hair, sharp green eyes, and the emotional subtlety of a lightning strike, which meant she could go from icy to volcanic in less than a breath. At the far end of the table sat Eleanor Ashford, 62, family matriarch, retired media titan, and the woman who had saved my life without ever letting me forget that saving someone also creates rules, invisible, unbreakable rules. Grace Miller, the manor's housekeeper, stood near the sideboard with a tea tray and the expression of a woman who always spotted disasters long before the participants did. The lawyer, Mr. Whitcomb, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "Mr. Walker, these documents take effect tonight at midnight, as discussed with Mrs. Ashford." "Not with me, with Mrs. Ashford." I didn't point that out. What do they include? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Alexandra answered before the lawyer could open his mouth. Financial independence. Your trust account becomes fully accessible in managed phases. Your university expenses remain covered through graduation. The apartment in Chelsea is available immediately, though you're free to decline it. You may continue using the Ashford name socially if you wish, but legally you remain Ethan Walker unless you request otherwise. Her voice was smooth, efficient, and cold, like this was a board restructuring and I was just a division being spun off into the wild. Victoria added, the guardianship-related provisions terminate cleanly. There will be no legal ambiguity. You will have full personal autonomy. Full personal autonomy, that was one way to say, you are no longer our responsibility. Serena looked at the untouched slice of cake in front of me. You should eat before the sugar crashes your mood. I looked at her, surprised. My mood? You've barely touched your plate. That's because I'm reading emancipation paperwork with frosting nearby. Her fingers tightened around her fork, and I saw a flicker of something, concern, before she masked it. Celeste looked away, her voice dripping with false nonchalance. Don't make it sound tragic. People would kill for an Ashford trust and a Chelsea apartment. Celeste, Eleanor warned. What? It's true. I smiled, a small one, the kind I had learned to use when I wanted everyone to stop worrying without forcing anyone to admit they were worried. It's all right. It wasn't all right, but it was clean, and that was the Ashford way. When I first arrived, I used to think coldness meant hatred. After a while, I told myself it meant manners, then I told myself it meant protection. Tonight, I finally understood that maybe it was simply distance. They had waited until I turned 21, given me every possible resource, and now they were handing me the door. Mr. Whitcomb pointed to the signature lines. You are not required to sign tonight. You may review with independent counsel. Victoria nodded. You should. I almost laughed. Of course she would say that. Victoria had once reviewed a pizza delivery receipt because the tip calculation looked suspicious. I've already reviewed it, I said. 4 heads turned toward me. Alexandra's eyes narrowed. With whom? A legal aid attorney from campus. Victoria's expression changed by a single degree, which for her was the equivalent of shouting. You consulted outside counsel? Yes. When? 2 weeks ago. Serena set down her fork with a clink. Celeste stared at me like I had hidden a body under the cake. Eleanor watched quietly, her face unreadable. Alexandra said, You didn't tell us. No. Why? I looked at the folder because it seemed like something I should learn to do to prepare, to protect myself, to stop waiting for someone else to explain my own life. For a moment, nobody spoke, and that silence told me more than their words ever had. They had not expected me to prepare. Maybe they thought I would wait for them to explain, or ask where to go next. Or keep living in the Ashford orbit because gratitude looked so much like obedience when viewed from above. I signed the documents, 1 page, then another, then another. My name looked steady, Ethan Walker, not Ashford, never Ashford. When I finished, I placed the pen neatly beside the folder. Thank you, I said. Eleanor's eyes softened, but she didn't interrupt. I stood, and the dining room felt enormous around me, with portraits of dead Ashford ancestors watching with the judgment of people who had never paid rent in their lives. I've already arranged housing near the university, I said. Not the Chelsea apartment, a small place in Brooklyn. My research assistant position starts Monday. I'll leave before breakfast. Celeste's chair scraped loudly. You what? I'll leave before breakfast. Alexandra's voice became very quiet, almost a whisper. Ethan. I bowed my head slightly to Eleanor first. Thank you for taking me in when I had nowhere else to go. Then I looked at Alexandra. Thank you for the schools, the studio supplies, and the internship recommendations. Her face was unreadable, but I saw her jaw tighten. I turned to Victoria. Thank you for handling all the legal things I was too young to understand. Victoria looked like I had just accused her of a crime. I turned to Serena. Thank you for making sure I recovered properly. Serena's lips parted, but no words came out. Then Celeste. Thank you for making the manor less quiet. Her eyes went bright, and I saw her blink rapidly. I looked at all 4 of them. I know I was difficult to place here. I know this was never simple. I'll stop troubling you after tonight. Alexandra rose, troubling us? I forced another smile. I mean it with gratitude. No, Victoria said, her voice sharp. You don't. Serena pushed her chair back. Your heart rate is probably elevated. Serena, I said softly, and that made her flinch. I had called her Serena, not sister, so I corrected myself automatically, the way I had for 3 years. Sorry, I mean, Sister Serena. Celeste stood so fast her chair nearly toppled. Do not. I looked at her, confused. What? Her face was pale. Do not call me that. Before I could answer, Alexandra said, do not call me sister either. Victoria's voice followed, lower and sharper. Nor me. Serena stood last, her hands trembling even though the rest of her stayed still. Not anymore. I stared at them, and the room shifted beneath me like the floor had turned to water. For 3 years, I had thought that word sister protected me. It gave me a place, not a real one maybe, but a safe one, a polite one. Now they were taking even that away. I tried to breathe. I understand. No, you clearly do not, Celeste snapped. Eleanor closed her eyes. Grace whispered something under her breath that sounded like finally and also disaster. Alexandra stepped around the table. Ethan, sit down. The old me would have obeyed, the boy they brought home at 18 would have sat before she finished the sentence, but I did not. I have packing to finish. Victoria moved toward the doorway. You are not leaving this conversation. I looked at her. You said I have full personal autonomy. That stopped her cold, a legal trap, and a fair one. Serena looked between us like she wanted to sedate the entire room. Celeste stared at me with tears gathering at furious speed. Eleanor finally spoke, one word that carried the weight of the entire house, girls. All 4 stopped. I picked up the folder. Thank you for dinner. Then I walked out of the dining room, and my hands did not shake until I reached the staircase. Behind me, 4 women began speaking at once, their voices overlapping in a chaos I had never heard from them before. For the first time since I entered Ashford Manor, none of them sounded cold. Chapter 2, they argued over who hurt me first. I made it halfway to my room before they caught me, not physically, because Ashford women did not run in hallways. They advanced with controlled emergency, except Celeste, who absolutely ran. Ethan Walker, stop walking like you're in some sad independent film, she yelled from behind me. I stopped beside the East Gallery, where oil portraits of dead Ashford men stared down at us with inherited disapproval. That is a very specific complaint, I said. Celeste arrived first, breath uneven, eyes bright with unshed tears. You cannot just announce you're leaving before breakfast. I can. You cannot. I signed documents proving I can. Victoria reached us next, her expression locked in courtroom mode. Legally, yes. Emotionally, your conduct is reckless. My conduct? You made a unilateral departure announcement during a family dinner. I stared at her. Victoria, the dinner included a lawyer. Her mouth closed. Serena arrived with a glass of water in 2 small tablets. I looked at them. What are those? Magnesium and electrolyte support. I'm not dehydrated. You're pale. It's been an unusual evening. Take them anyway. No. Serena froze. It might have been the first time I had refused something medical from her. Alexandra came last, not because she was slow, but because she never hurried where anyone could see. Everyone into the west sitting room, she ordered. No, I said. 4 faces turned toward me. I took a slow breath. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm also not going to be moved from room to room until this feels manageable for everyone else. Alexandra's jaw tightened. She was used to command, and I was used to obeying, but both habits stood between us like a wall. Eleanor's voice came from behind them. Let him choose the room. She stood at the end of the hall with Grace beside her. Grace carrying a tea tray because apparently disaster required service. I looked around. The library, I said. It was the room where I had spent most of my first year, half hiding among books and half pretending I belonged. We entered in strange formation, me first, then 4 women who had told me not to call them sisters, then Eleanor, then Grace, who set tea on the low table and stayed as if daring anyone to dismiss the only reasonable person in the house. The library smelled like leather, paper, and old rain, and I sat in the armchair nearest the fireplace, not the sofa, not the center, an edge seat where I could escape. I noticed Alexandra noticed. Celeste did not sit, she paced. Victoria stood beside the mantel like a prosecutor waiting for a defendant to lie. Serena set the water beside me, but I did not drink. Alexandra spoke first. The documents were not a dismissal. I looked at her. They felt like one. They were meant to give you freedom. Then why did a lawyer explain my birthday gift? Victoria winced. Good, Alexandra did not. We wanted the terms to be clear. You always do. That is not a crime. No, it's just lonely. That silenced her. Celeste stopped pacing. Serena's eyes dropped to my hands. Victoria said, you should have asked. That hurt enough to make me laugh once. Asked what? Whether the 4 women who barely looked at me during my own birthday dinner secretly wanted me to stay? Celeste's face crumpled. I looked at you. You looked angry. I was trying not to cry. How would I know that? She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Serena sat on the edge of the sofa. We didn't know you thought we wanted you gone. I looked at her. You called me fragile for 3 years. You were fragile after the accident, not forever. Her face changed, but I continued. Because if I stopped, I would soften. Alexandra arranged my life like a project. Victoria spoke to me like a risk assessment. You treated my body like a case file. Celeste acted like my existence annoyed her. Celeste whispered, it didn't. It sounded like it did. Victoria's voice was quiet now. We were following rules. What rules? Everyone looked at Eleanor. For the first time, the Ashford matriarch looked old, not weak, never weak, but older. She sat across from me, hands folded. When you came here, she said, you were 18. Grieving, financially dependent, injured, and surrounded by people with far more power than you. My daughters were adults, wealthy, influential, each in her own way difficult. Thank you, Mother, Celeste muttered, but Eleanor ignored her. I gave them strict instructions. You were to be protected, educated, supported, and given space to become your own person. They were not to influence your romantic life, emotional dependence, or future choices. They were to treat you as a younger family member until you reached full adult independence. I sat very still. Victoria said, we were not allowed to blur the relationship. Serena added, you needed safety. Celeste looked away. Alexandra said nothing. I looked at Eleanor. So they were cold because you ordered them to be? No, Eleanor said. I ordered restraint. She paused, disastered. Grace made a small sound that might have been a cough or agreement wearing a uniform. Celeste exploded first. Disaster? I was 20 when he arrived, Mother, 20. He was 18 and looked like a tragic painting. You told me not to get attached. I told you not to make him responsible for your attachment. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Victoria looked at Celeste sharply. You were 20. I was 24 and working in the district attorney's office. Do you know how many people would have suggested impropriety if we crossed any line? Alexandra's voice cut in. And I was already running acquisitions for the company. Every gesture I made could have looked like leverage. Serena said, he was recovering. There are ethical boundaries in medical care. Celeste threw up her hands. So we all decided the best option was to act like ice sculptures with private anxiety disorders. Grace said, a surprisingly accurate summary. Alexandra turned to her. Grace lifted the teapot. More tea? I should have been angry, part of me was, but another part felt something worse, hope, arriving late and unwanted. I looked at Celeste. You wore the bookmark. She froze. What? You said at dinner that if you hated me, why would you carry the bookmark I made? Her face flushed. It fits in my violin case. That's not an answer. It's not your turn to cross-examine, Victoria said. I looked at her. You made lists about people near me, didn't you? Her silence answered. I turned to Serena. And you kept medical records past what was necessary. Recovery records. Serena. Her jaw tightened. Yes. Alexandra looked like she was waiting for sentencing. I asked, and you? She met my eyes. I saved your first architecture model. My breath caught. The cardboard shelter prototype? Yes. It was terrible. No, Alexandra said, it was brilliant. Structurally unstable and financially impossible, but brilliant. I didn't know what to do with that. For 3 years, I had carried small wounds like private proof. Celeste hated me. Serena thought I was weak, Victoria thought I was a liability, Alexandra thought I was an obligation. Now those proofs were cracking, but the cracks did not undo the years. I stood, and everyone tensed. I understand more than I did 10 minutes ago. Celeste stepped closer. Then you'll stay. No. The word hurt them, it hurt me too. I'm still leaving tomorrow. Serena said, why? Because if I stay tonight, all of this becomes another Ashford decision made around me. I need to know who I am outside this house. Alexandra said, we're not trying to control you. I looked at the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar empire, the prosecutor with a risk list, the surgeon with my vitals, and the violinist who had turned emotional avoidance into performance art. Grace said softly, Miss Alexandra, perhaps let that one pass. Alexandra closed her mouth. Victoria asked, what do you need from us? That was new, a good question, a dangerous one. I answered carefully, do not follow me tonight. Do not send security. Do not inspect my apartment. Do not speak to my landlord. Do not ask anyone to report on me. If you want to talk, ask. Celeste looked horrified. Ask like strangers? No, ask like people who do not own me. That landed. Eleanor nodded slowly. Fair. Alexandra's eyes lowered. May I contact you tomorrow? You may text. May I visit? One at a time. All four looked at each other, and that was when the second disaster began. Celeste said, I call first. Victoria said, absolutely not. You're emotionally volatile. Serena said, he needs rest tomorrow, not a concert of your feelings. Alexandra said, I am the eldest. Celeste snapped, that is not a romantic qualification. Silence. The word hummed there, romantic? No one breathed. Victoria's cheeks turned faintly pink. Serena looked at the tea tray like it might explode. Alexandra's expression went corporate blank, which for her meant panic. I stood in the middle of the library, 21 years old, newly independent, holding legal papers that said I belonged to myself, while four high-status women who had spent years pretending to be cold were now arguing over who had the right to see me first. I should have felt triumphant. Mostly, I felt dizzy. Grace lifted her teacup. Well, she said, happy birthday. Chapter 3, The Rules That Made Them Cold. I did not sleep much that night. Ashford Manor had always been quiet after midnight. But that night the quiet felt crowded with ghosts and half-spoken truths. I stood in my room and packed 3 years into 2 suitcases and 4 storage boxes, books first, sketchbooks second, model tools wrapped in old shirts, clothes folded carefully because motion was easier than thought. The room itself was too large for a man who never truly believed it belonged to him. Pale walls, tall windows, dark wooden desk, shelves filled with architecture books Alexandra had sent without notes. A reading chair Serena said had better back support, a lamp Victoria once claimed was less likely to cause eye strain, and a blanket Celeste had insisted was ugly before leaving it on my bed one winter. Evidence, all of it evidence, not enough to undo the feeling of being unwanted, but enough to make the story harder to tell. A soft knock came at 1:30 a.m., and I opened the door to find Grace standing there with a small tray. Tea, toast, and the look of a woman who had ignored orders from better-dressed people than me. You didn't eat your cake, she said. I had legal documents instead. Poor substitute, less frosting. I let her in, and she placed the tray on my desk, eyeing the half-packed boxes. Efficient. Please don't say that word tonight. Ah, Miss Alexandra said it several times. Grace sat in the chair by the window without asking, she had earned that right. I had trusted her before anyone else in the house. Grace Miller had managed Ashford Manor for 20 years. And she knew which portraits had listening devices during renovations, which donors drank too much, which fireplaces smoked, and which Ashford daughter was pretending not to cry by reorganizing silverware. You're really going, she said. Yes. Good. I looked at her, surprised. That's not what I expected. You need to go, not because they want you gone, but because you need a door that opens from your side. I sat on the edge of the bed. Did you know that they were all hopeless? Yes, Grace. My dear boy, Alexandra once canceled a meeting with a senator because your studio review ran late and she wanted a car waiting in case it rained. She said it was a scheduling coincidence. She lied badly. I looked down. Grace continued. Victoria had 3 young men quietly removed from your university social circle because they were placing bets on how close they could get to Ashford money through you. My head lifted. What? Nothing illegal, just ugly. She handled it before you knew. Handled how? Words, legal ones, very sharp. I remembered 2 guys from first year who suddenly stopped inviting me out after making jokes about rich families and easy money. I had thought they got bored. Grace went on. Serena sat outside your room all night when you had pneumonia that first winter. She came in every 20 minutes until I threatened to lock her in the linen closet. I stared. And Celeste, Grace said, smiling slightly, has carried that dreadful wooden bookmark on tour for 2 years. A German magazine photographed her with it. She told them it was a piece from a private artisan collection. I covered my face. I carved it with a pocket knife and nearly ruined the finish. Yes, very exclusive. I did not laugh, not fully, the sound got stuck in my throat. Grace leaned forward. Ethan, hidden love can still wound. Do not let the evidence of their caring convince you that your pain was imaginary. That was the sentence I needed. I looked at her. You think I should forgive them? I think you should eat toast. That was not an answer, but it was the more urgent matter. She pushed the plate toward me, and I ate because she would not leave otherwise. At 2 a.m., Eleanor asked to see me in her study, and Grace went with me, which said something about trust. Eleanor's study was smaller than the library but more personal. With framed photographs on the shelves, most of her daughters as children, and one newer shot showing the 5 of us at a charity shelter project 2 summers earlier. I stood at the edge, noticing that Celeste had been looking at me instead of the camera. I had never noticed that before. Eleanor poured tea. She did not offer whiskey, which meant the conversation was serious. I owe you an apology, she said. The words startled me. Mrs. Ashford Eleanor, she corrected. You are no longer a minor under my protection. Call me Eleanor. That felt strange, but I nodded. All right. She sat behind the desk, then seemed to realize the position was too formal and moved to the chair across from me. I believed rules would protect you from gratitude becoming dependence. From my daughter's influence, from the imbalance of money and grief. They did. Yes, and they harmed you. I stayed silent, and she accepted that. When you arrived, Alexandra wanted to move your entire university application process into the corporate education office. Victoria wanted a background check on every person who had ever contacted you after the accident. Serena wanted to control your recovery schedule minute by minute. Celeste wanted to spend every afternoon in your room pretending she had come to insult your music taste. Despite myself, I smiled faintly. Sounds like them. I saw 4 powerful young women at risk of overwhelming a grieving young man. So I gave them a rule, sisters only. No pressure, no romance, no possession, no using family authority to bind you. That probably, it was incomplete. I looked at her. I did not teach them how to care within restraint. I assumed coldness would be safer than confusion. She looked tired. I was wrong. That was a powerful woman's apology, short, plain, costly. Why tonight? I asked. The documents. Yes, because you deserved freedom before confession. The words settled uneasily in me. You wanted them to wait until I could leave. Yes, and they agreed, not happily. A memory came back, Alexandra leaving dinner early 6 months ago after Eleanor said something about my birthday arrangements, Victoria avoiding me for a week afterward, Serena checking my blood pressure 3 times in one day. Celeste calling me an idiot during breakfast and then crying in the music room. They had known the date was coming. I had thought they were relieved, but maybe they were terrified. Eleanor opened a drawer and removed a small box. These were not meant for tonight, but Grace insists delayed truth is how this disaster began. Grace, standing near the door, said, I stand by that. Inside the box were 4 items, a tiny photograph of my first architecture model clipped from a presentation board. A folded legal memo with my name highlighted, a medical note in Serena's hand, not a chart, but a reminder, do not call in weak, and a concert program from Vienna where Celeste's encore piece was titled Little Wooden House. I stared at them. What is this? Proof, Eleanor said. Not obligation, not pressure, proof that your interpretation was understandable, but not complete. I touched the concert program, Little Wooden House. I had once made Celeste a bookmark shaped like a crooked little house because she said hotels never felt real on tour. She had called it pathetic, then named a piece after it. I laughed once, and it hurt. Eleanor said, I will not ask you to stay. I will ask you not to decide tonight that their worst expression is their only truth. That was fair, annoyingly fair. I cannot promise more than that. It is enough. When I returned to my room, I found 4 envelopes slipped under the door. No one knocked. Progress. Alexandra's envelope contained a single card. I did not mean to make freedom feel like removal. I am sorry. Victoria's contained 3 drafts, 2 crossed out. The final line read, I protected you as if you were evidence. You were never evidence. Serena's handwriting was sharp, you were not weak. I was afraid. That is not your fault. Celeste's note was messy, if you leave before breakfast, I will hate breakfast forever. Also, I do not hate you. I never hated you, you impossible idiot. I placed all 4 letters in my backpack, then kept packing. Chapter 4, I left before breakfast. I left Ashford Manor at 5:40 a.m. not because I wanted to avoid them, but because I wanted to know I could leave without asking permission from the house itself. The sky was gray, the garden still dark, and morning staff had not yet begun the polished routines that made the manor feel less like a machine and more like a mausoleum. I carried 2 suitcases down the back stairs. My storage boxes would be picked up later by a moving service I had booked with my own money, not the trust, not Ashford funds, but the research assistant advance, a small scholarship stipend, and 3 years of saving from paid design projects Eleanor had insisted I invoice properly. I left the black Ashford credit card on the desk in my room, and decided, the keys to the car Alexandra had assigned me not because I rejected everything, but because some things needed to be returned before I knew what I accepted freely. Grace waited in the kitchen, of course she did, wearing a cardigan over her uniform and holding a paper bag. Breakfast, she said. I thought everyone would be asleep. Everyone is pretending to be asleep. I looked toward the hall, and Grace followed my glance. No one will stop you. Mrs. Ashford made that very clear. What about the others? Miss Alexandra attempted to call the driver. Mrs. Ashford removed her phone. I blinked. Removed? Temporarily, Alexandra allowed that. She did not, strictly speaking. I almost smiled. Victoria asked whether she could confirm the legality of your lease, and Mrs. Ashford said no. Miss Victoria looked like someone had repealed law. Serena packed a medical kit and wrote instructions for 3 possible forms of malnutrition. I sighed. Celeste? Grace paused. Crying in the music room while claiming the piano is out of tune. That one hurt. Grace handed me the paper bag. Go before one of them becomes poetic. I took the bag. Thank you. She touched my cheek once, maternal, simple, something nobody else in this house ever made simple. You are not leaving because you were unloved. You are leaving because love without permission feels too much like captivity. I swallowed. I know. Do you? I'm trying to. She opened the kitchen door, and the morning air hit cold. A rideshare waited near the service drive. I had ordered it under my own account, a small rebellion Alexandra would probably consider unsafe, inefficient, and personally offensive. I loaded my suitcases before I got in, and then I looked back. 4 figures stood in the second-floor windows, not together, separate windows, Alexandra in the east office, Victoria in the library window, Serena behind the lace curtain near the medical sitting room, Celeste in the music room with her hands pressed to the glass. None of them came down, none of them stopped me. That mattered. It also broke something. I got into the car, and the driver asked, Brooklyn? Yes. As the manor gates opened behind us, my phone buzzed with 4 messages. Alexandra, may I visit today? Victoria, are you willing to provide your address voluntarily? Serena, send proof you ate breakfast. Celeste, if you do not answer me, I will compose something ugly. I looked at the messages, and for the first time, I did not answer immediately. Instead, I opened Grace's paper bag, toast and apple, a small slice of birthday cake wrapped in wax paper, and a note in Grace's hand, sweetness after freedom is still allowed. My Brooklyn apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building with uneven stairs. Loud pipes, and a front door that required convincing rather than unlocking, nothing like the Chelsea apartment in the legal folder, and that was the point. The unit had 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a living room with good north light, and a window that looked out onto a fire escape and the brick wall of the neighboring building. The radiator clanked like it had opinions, and I loved it immediately. At 8:15, a second-hand furniture delivery arrived. At 8:40, I assembled a table badly. At 9:10, I ate toast sitting on the floor because the chair was still in pieces. At 9:30, I finally answered the messages. To Alexandra, you may text visits later, one at a time. To Victoria, I will provide the address voluntarily when I am ready. Please do not obtain it another way. To Serena, I ate toast and apple and cake. This is not a balanced breakfast. I survived. To Celeste, do not compose anything ugly before noon. Alexandra replied first, understood. May I ask when later is? Victoria, I will not search for it. Then, that sentence was difficult to write. Serena, cake for breakfast is medically unserious. Then, but I am glad you ate. Celeste, too late. The ugly piece exists. It is called breakfast betrayal. I laughed alone in my empty apartment, and the sound startled me. It felt good. Then came the practical part of freedom, a bookshelf that leaned. A shower with unpredictable temperature, grocery shopping with actual price comparison, a landlord who said the hallway light would be fixed soon, which I suspected meant never. I spent the day unpacking and building a version of myself not designed around Ashford's schedules. At 5 p.m., someone knocked, and I froze. No one had my address. I checked the peephole, and a delivery man stood there holding an enormous bouquet of white orchids and a black envelope. Alexandra. I opened the door, and the delivery man looked exhausted. Ethan Walker? Yes. Where do you want the other ones? I stared. The other ones? He pointed toward the stairs, and 6 more arrangements waited in the hall. I took the envelope first. Ethan, I did not come because you said later. I did send flowers because the apartment likely needs life. If this is too much, say so. Alexandra. I looked at the orchid invasion, then at my tiny apartment, then texted, this is too much. Her reply came in 19 seconds, understood. How many are acceptable? I looked at one small arrangement with green leaves and white blooms. 1. She replied, the rest will be removed. The delivery man received a call, looked relieved, and hauled away 6 floral apologies, progress. At 7 p.m., Serena sent a message, have you eaten dinner? I almost sent a photo of the cereal box just to watch her suffer, but instead I made pasta. At 8:30, Victoria sent, I did not search your address. I am informing you because silence would make you wonder. I appreciated that more than I wanted to. At 10 o'clock, Celeste sent an audio file, breakfast betrayal. I listened to it, gorgeous, melodramatic, furious, wounded, and far too beautiful for a piece supposedly written about toast. At the end, her voice came through, I hate that you left. I hate that I understand why. I hate that I cannot call you little brother. I hate that I do not want to. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall. Phone in hand, surrounded by half-built furniture and the strange quiet of a life I had chosen. I did not go back, that was the first real victory. Chapter 5, the CEO tried to buy my neighborhood. Alexandra lasted 36 hours before requesting a visit, not demanding, requesting, and that alone told me the world had shifted. Her message arrived at 6:02 a.m., would today at 5:30 p.m. be acceptable for a visit? I stared at it over coffee, and then another message came, I understand if not. Then another, I will not bring legal documents. Then, after 3 minutes, or flowers. I smiled despite myself, 5:30 is acceptable. At 5:28 p.m., someone knocked exactly 2 minutes early, and I opened the door to find Alexandra Ashford standing in the hallway in a tailored charcoal coat, black heels, and the expression of a woman pretending not to evaluate the building's structural integrity. Behind her stood no assistant, no security guard, no driver. Progress again. Then I saw the leather document case in her hand. Alexandra. She looked down at it. It is not legal. What is it? A safety assessment, an emergency renovation budget, and a neighborhood acquisition concept. I began closing the door. She put one hand out. Wait, neighborhood acquisition concept? Not the whole neighborhood. I stared at her. She amended, several adjacent properties. No. You haven't heard the reasoning. I heard the words. The hallway light does not function. The front entry lock sticks. There are water stains above the stairwell. Your building has no doorman. It also has rent I can pay. I am not objecting to independence, I am objecting to preventable risk. You tried to buy my surroundings as a protective measure, as a controlling measure. Her lips pressed together, that one hit good, she needed the impact. I stepped aside after a moment. You may come in. The documents stay by the door. She entered and obeyed, but she looked at the apartment like a CEO inspecting a hostile merger. Her eyes moved to the uneven bookshelf. That leans. I know. The left bracket is misaligned. I know. The window latch is loose. I know. The radiator is making a sound. It has personality. It has pressure imbalance. Do not buy the radiator. She looked at me, and then unbelievably she almost smiled. I will restrain myself. I had never seen Alexandra Ashford restrain herself from fixing anything. She saw the world as a set of solvable inefficiencies, and her love language, if such a thing could survive inside her, was optimization. I made tea because I did not own anything stronger and because tea was what Grace would have done. Alexandra stood awkwardly in the living room. You can sit. She looked at the second-hand chair. Is it stable? Emotionally? No. Physically? Probably. She sat carefully, the chair creaked, and her eyes widened by 1 millimeter. I laughed. She looked offended, then something softer crossed her face. You're laughing. Yes, at my discomfort. A little. I suppose I deserve that. That surprised me. I handed her tea, and she took it with both hands. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I did not mean to make freedom feel like removal. I read your note. I know. I wanted to say it. I nodded. She looked around again, but this time less like she was assessing assets and more like she was trying to understand my choice. Why this apartment? It's mine. The Chelsea apartment would also be yours. No, it would be Ashford Generosity with my name on the mailbox. She looked down at her cup. That distinction matters to you. Yes. I should have known that. Maybe. She accepted the maybe. I saved your model. The cardboard shelter? Yes. Why? Because it was the first thing in this house that looked like you intended to build a world instead of survive one. That sentence hit somewhere I had not guarded. Alexandra continued, her voice low, I saw you at that presentation. You were still too thin. You held the model like it might apologize for existing. Then someone asked a question about cost projections. And you answered with more confidence than I had ever heard from you. I thought, there he is. I stared at her. You never said anything. I sent you a better cutting mat. I thought that was because mine was cheap. It was also, I was proud. I laughed quietly. You express pride through office supplies. I see now that the signal was unclear. Very. She set the tea down. Ethan, I am used to making sure people have what they need before they need it. Money allows that. Power allows that. But with you, I used it to avoid asking what you wanted. That is true. I know. Do you? Her eyes met mine. Yes, because I am sitting in a chair that may kill me, and I am not replacing it without permission. A laugh escaped me, and she smiled then, not the public CEO smile, but a real one, small, rare, dangerous. The curtain rod chose that moment to fall, dropping from one side with a metallic clatter. Alexandra shot to her feet, but I pointed at her. Do not acquire the building. I was not going to. You thought about it. Briefly. Sit. The rod is hanging. I know. I can fix it. You can fix a curtain rod? She paused. No, but I can become the sort of person who can. That was how Alexandra Ashford, CEO of Ashford Holdings, ended up standing on a second-hand chair in my Brooklyn apartment holding a screwdriver incorrectly while I tried not to stare at the fact that a woman who had negotiated billion-dollar deals was losing a fight to a bracket. Turn left, I said. She turned right. The other left. That phrase is structurally hostile. You're tightening it. It resisted. It's a screw. It should have said so. I laughed hard enough that she looked down at me, startled. Then she laughed too, barely, but enough. After we fixed the curtain badly, she stood near the door. I want to ask correctly, she said. Ask what? May I see you again? There it was, not an arrangement, not an acquisition, not a solution, a question. Yes, I said. But Alexandra, no more buying things around me. She nodded. I will ask before fixing your life. Good. She opened the door, then stopped. I did not want to be your sister. My breath caught. She did not turn around. I accepted the word because it was the only permitted place near you. I understand if that place is all I deserve now. Then she left. I stood in my apartment with a crooked curtain rod and a heart that no longer knew which wounds were old and which ones were opening into something else. Chapter 6. The prosecutor cross-examined my date. Victoria asked for coffee, not a meeting, not a legal reviewed coffee. Her text read, would you be willing to have coffee with me in a public location of your choosing? Then, 2 minutes later, this is not a summons. Then, that clarification may have made it worse. I laughed alone in my studio lab. By then, my research assistant position had begun. I worked with a small team studying humane housing design for low-income families, temporary shelters, and post-disaster relocation. It was the kind of work that reminded me why I had survived the worst years. A space can tell someone they are unwanted, it can also tell them they are safe, and I understood both. I chose a small coffee shop near campus, crowded enough to be neutral and quiet enough to talk. Victoria arrived exactly on time in a navy coat, hair pulled back, face composed. She looked less like a woman arriving for coffee and more like an attorney preparing to dismantle a witness with oat milk nearby. She sat across from me. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for not subpoenaing me." Her eyes flickered. "That joke is not entirely unfair." "No." She pulled a folder from her bag, and I stared at it. "Victoria, it is not legal. Why does everyone start there?" She opened the folder, and inside was a printed document titled Preliminary Relationship Boundary and External Risk Consideration Framework. I closed my eyes. "No. I haven't explained. No, it's only a framework. Victoria, this is a date trying to disguise itself as a deposition." Her face went still. "A date?" I realized what I had said, so did she. The air between us changed. I corrected carefully, "A coffee conversation that should not require exhibits." She looked down at the folder. "I wanted to do this responsibly." "What is this?" She hesitated, then turned the first page toward me. Names, not many, but enough. A classmate from my design program, a neighbor I had spoken with twice, Rachel Miller, a friendly graduate student who shared my research lab. There were notes beside each: background unknown, social proximity moderate, motivational ambiguity. I closed the folder slowly. Victoria's fingers tightened. "You investigated people around me." "I did preliminary public record reviews. That's worse phrased, not better." Her jaw flexed. "When you entered the Ashford world, people saw access, they saw money, invitations, vulnerability. You were 18 and grieving. Some were curious, some were predatory. And now you're 21 and still connected to a family people may exploit. So your solution is to treat every person near me like a suspect." I did not say suspect. "You wrote motivational ambiguity." She looked pained. "That is a neutral phrase." "It is a terrible phrase." Before she could answer, someone stopped beside our table. "Ethan." I looked up. Rachel Miller stood there holding an iced coffee and a stack of design notes. She was 22, friendly, loud, and the kind of person who could enter a room without asking permission from the atmosphere. "Hey," I said. "Rachel." Her eyes moved to Victoria. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." Victoria's expression shifted into polite danger. "Victoria Ashford." "Rachel Miller." They shook hands. Victoria smiled. It was not warm. "Do you study with Ethan?" Rachel blinked. "Yes, we're both on Professor Lang's housing project." "How long have you known him?" I put my hand over the folder. "Victoria." Rachel looked between us. "Is this an interview?" "No," I said. Victoria said, "Of course not." Both answers were unconvincing. Rachel smiled slowly. "Well, I've known Ethan for 8 months. I have no criminal record unless library fines count. I like his models, not his imaginary money, and I once bought him a muffin because he forgot lunch. Do I pass?" For the first time in her life, Victoria Ashford had no immediate reply. I stood. "Rachel, I'll see you in lab tomorrow." "Sure." She looked at Victoria. "Good luck with whatever this is." After Rachel left, I sat back down. Victoria stared at her coffee. "That went poorly." "Yes. I did not intend to embarrass you." "I know." I did intend to frighten her slightly. "Victoria." She looked up. There it was, the truth under the legal armor. "She made you laugh in the lab last week." I stared. "How would you know that?" "Celeste saw a photo on the project website and sent it to everyone." "Not everyone, Victoria." "The family group chat." I covered my face. She spoke quickly, which was rare. "I did not like seeing her stand beside you." "That is not rational. It is also not a legal issue." "I understand that." I looked at her through my fingers. "Are you saying you were jealous?" Her face went very still. "No." I waited. She looked away. "Yes." The words seemed to physically hurt her. "Was that your first confession of jealousy?" "Yes." "How does it feel?" "Like admitting to mishandling evidence." I laughed, and she looked at me startled. "Do not laugh." "I'm sorry." "You are not." "No." She looked at the folder, then, with visible pain, tore the first page in half, then the second, then the third. "Victoria," she kept going until the entire framework was a pile of ruined control. I do not want to protect you by making your world smaller, she said, her words quiet and costly. I need you to understand, I spent 3 years removing threats before you saw them. People who wanted introductions, reporters who wanted a human tragedy angle, social climbers, investors' sons who joked about getting close to you. It became easy to treat any unknown person as a potential harm. I appreciate what you did then. Her eyes lifted. But I am not 18 now, I said. And if you want to be in my life, you cannot make every open door into a crime scene. She nodded once. I know. Do you? I am learning. That phrase, Alexandra had learned it, now Victoria. Maybe the Ashford women were not incapable of change, maybe they were just terrifying beginners. We drank coffee after that, awkwardly but without documents. She asked about my project, I asked about her caseload, and she surprised me by saying, I cannot discuss details, but I can discuss how tired I am. That counts. I dislike how human it makes me sound. It is a good sound. She looked down at her cup, a faint color touched her cheeks. When we left, she stood outside the coffee shop. Ethan. Yes. I would like to see you again. That sounded almost normal. I practiced in the car. You practiced asking me that? Yes. I smiled. All right, you may ask again later. She considered. That was not a yes. No, it was an invitation to ask like a person next time. Her mouth softened. I can attempt that. As I walked back to campus, my phone buzzed. Celeste, did the prosecutor interrogate your barista? Serena, did you drink coffee after 3 p.m.? Alexandra, Victoria destroyed documents in public, should I be concerned? Victoria, I did not interrogate the barista. Celeste, then why did she look like she swallowed a subpoena? I laughed so loudly that 2 students looked at me. The quiet life I wanted was getting complicated, but this time the complications were asking permission. Chapter 7. The doctor said my heart rate was suspicious. Serena did not ask for coffee. Serena sent an appointment confirmation, Ashford Medical Center, Executive Outpatient Wing, patient Ethan Walker, purpose, post-transition health review, time, Friday 4 p.m. I stared at the message for a full minute, and then my phone buzzed again. Before you object, your sleep has likely deteriorated. Your diet is inconsistent. And your apartment stairs are bad for your knee in cold weather. I replied, this is not how invitations work. She answered, this is not an invitation, it is preventive medicine. I wrote, no. Then, please. That one word changed everything. Serena Ashford did not say please casually. She had once told a hospital board chair move rather than please move because he was blocking an emergency corridor. I went not because she ordered, but because she asked badly and then corrected. The executive outpatient wing smelled like money and antiseptic. Serena met me at the entrance wearing a white coat over dark scrubs, hair tied back, eyes sharp enough to cut stitches. You look tired, she said. Good to see you too. You have lost weight. I've been gone less than a week. Stress weight changes can begin quickly. I ate lunch. What? A sandwich. What kind? I refused to answer on constitutional grounds. Her lips pressed together. You spent time with Victoria. I blinked. That is your transition, your stress response is visible. Serena, Alexandra visited your apartment. Yes. She probably touched contaminated hardware. She fought a curtain rod. Serena froze. What? And lost. For half a second, her face softened into something like amusement, then it vanished. Sit. I am here voluntarily. Then voluntarily sit. I sat. The exam room was too clean, too quiet, too serena. She checked my blood pressure, listened to my heart, examined the old scar along my rib from the accident, tested my knee mobility, and asked about sleep in the tone of someone already disappointed. You are hovering, I said. I am examining. You are hovering medically. Your terminology is poor. Your bedside manner is a crime. She looked at me. I have excellent surgical outcomes. I believe your patients are too afraid to complain. Her eyes narrowed, then, unexpectedly, she said, probably. I laughed. She attached a pulse oximeter to my finger, and the machine beeped. Her gaze flicked to the screen. Your heart rate increased. I am in a hospital. It increased when your phone lit up. I looked down, a message preview from Rachel appeared. Serena read the name, and the room temperature dropped. Who is Rachel? A classmate. Your heart rate rose. She sent lab notes. Your heart rate rose. Are you jealous of a PDF? That depends on the PDF. I stared at her. She looked away first, her ears turned pink. That was new. Serena. What? You are jealous. I am clinically observant. You are clinically jealous. The pulse monitor beeped faster. She looked at the screen. Now your heart rate is elevated because you are enjoying this. I am not. You are. I was a little, not because she was uncomfortable, but because for the first time Serena's care had a crack where emotion showed. She removed the monitor too quickly. You should not tease your doctor. You should not use my pulse as evidence in a romantic argument. She went still. I realized what I had said, romantic again. The word had become a match in a room full of gasoline. Serena placed the monitor on the counter. I took care of you after the accident. I know. No, you remember appointments, medication, physical therapy. You remember me telling you not to overexert yourself. I remember that. You do not remember the first week fully. No. You woke up at night asking where your parents were. The air left my chest. Serena's face was controlled, but her hands were not. I was 22, still in training. I was not supposed to become emotionally involved. You were injured, grieving, dependent, and Eleanor made the rules clear. So I made you a patient. You called me weak. I called your body fragile. It felt the same. I know that now. Her voice broke on the last word, barely, but it did. She turned toward the sink like washing her hands might erase the moment. I stood. Serena, don't. Don't what? Be kind while I am admitting I hurt you. It makes it harder to stay composed. I stepped closer but stopped before touching her. You are allowed to not be composed. I am a surgeon. You are also Serena. She closed her eyes. That was the first time I said her name without the sister attached in a quiet room. When she opened them, they were wet. I was afraid you would break again, she said. So I treated every risk like an enemy: bad food, bad sleep, bad stairs, bad people. I thought if I could keep your body safe, I could keep you. I swallowed. You never had me that way. I know. I am not glass. I know, but you remember when I was. Yes. That answer held all of it: the hospital bed, the pain, the nightmares, the young woman outside my door pretending not to care. I reached for the appointment paper and folded it. No more surprise medical appointments. She nodded. No using my heart rate against my classmates. Another nod. No calling me fragile. Her jaw tightened. I will try. Serena, I will. She exhaled, then softly, if you are sick, will you call me? I have a primary care doctor. Her expression chilled. I smiled. I will call you if I need you. That is not the same. No, it is better. She considered that acceptable. After the appointment, instead of letting her send a car, I asked if she wanted to eat something from the hospital convenience store. She looked horrified. Absolutely not. 10 minutes later, we sat on a quiet rooftop terrace with 2 wrapped sandwiches. 1 apple, and a bottle of water she insisted we share equally because hydration apparently had moral value. She unwrapped her sandwich like it had personally failed her. This is not food. You bought it. You suggested it. I suggested it because I wanted to watch you suffer. That is cruel. You checked my pulse when Rachel texted. She took a bite, then looked offended that it tasted acceptable. I smiled. She looked away. I do not hate you, she said. I know. I do not think you are weak. I am learning that. I worry. I know. I am bad at saying that without sounding like a chart. Very bad. A small smile appeared. Your follow-up manners are poor. I learned from my doctor. When I left the hospital, Serena did not tell me to text when I got home. She started to, stopped, then said, "May I know when you arrive safely?" That difference mattered. I said yes. On the subway, I received a message from Celeste. I heard Serena got medical custody for an afternoon. Unfair. Then, do you like violin music enough to survive a public emotional incident? I stared at the screen. That sounded dangerous. With Celeste, dangerous was usually accurate. Chapter 8, The Violinist Declared War in Public. Celeste's concert program arrived as a photograph, not from Celeste, from Grace. The program listed the evening's encore premiere, Unfair Brother, composed and performed by Celeste Ashford. Grace's message read, "You may wish to attend before she renames the second movement Legalized Abandonment." I called Celeste. She did not answer. Of course, she sent a text instead. If you want to know whether it is about you, attend like a brave man. I replied, did you just emotionally blackmail me with chamber music? She answered, yes. At 7:30 p.m., I sat in a private box at Lincoln Center because Grace had arranged a ticket and because apparently everyone in the Ashford world had decided my boundaries did not apply to elderly housekeepers with excellent timing. Celeste walked onto the stage in a silver gown, violin in hand, chin lifted, expression proud enough to make the audience lean forward before she played a single note. I had seen Celeste perform before, on screens. From the back of donor halls, once from a side stage when Eleanor insisted the whole family attend, but I had never watched her knowing she had carried something I made in her violin case that changed the music. The first half was flawless, technical fire, elegant rage, the kind of beauty that made the body forget seats existed. Then came the encore. Celeste stepped to the microphone. This piece is new, she said. The audience quieted. It is about someone who misunderstood nearly everything, mostly because the composer was too proud to explain anything. Soft laughter, my stomach tightened. It is also about breakfast. More laughter. She looked up toward the private boxes, found me, of course she found me. This is Unfair Brother. Then she played. The piece began sharp, almost childish in its anger, plucked strings like footsteps leaving, then a melody entered. Soft and crooked, like a small wooden house trying to stand in the wind. I knew that melody years ago. After her second month away on tour, Celeste came home furious because every hotel suite looked beautiful and felt empty. I had carved her a bookmark shaped like a tiny house with a crooked roof. She called it ugly, she took it anyway. On stage, the ugly little house became music. The middle movement was restless, jealous, dramatic. It felt like someone watching from a window and refusing to wave. The final movement nearly ruined me. It was not angry, it was lonely. When the last note faded, the hall stood. I did not right away. I had to remember how to breathe. Backstage security let me through because Ashford names opened doors even when I did not want them to. Celeste stood in her dressing room surrounded by flowers, assistants, and praise. When she saw me in the mirror, she told everyone to leave. They did fast. The door closed, and she turned. You came. You emotionally blackmailed me. You could have resisted. You know I like music. You like old building sketches and sad sandwiches. I also like music. She hugged her violin case to her chest. I looked at it. Is it in there? She froze. What? The bookmark. Her cheeks flushed. No. Celeste. She opened the case with theatrical resentment, and there it was, my crooked wooden house tucked beneath the neckrest, polished from touch. I stared. You kept it. I needed a page marker. For 3 years. I read long books. You hate long books. I hate you right now. No, you don't. Her eyes filled. No, she whispered. I don't. That stripped the room of performance. She sat on the small sofa, gown pooling around her. I knew first, she said. Knew what? That I did not feel like your sister. My breath caught. She looked down at the violin case. I was closest to your age. Alexandra could hide in business, Victoria in law, Serena in medicine. I had nothing except being horrible. You were very dedicated. A laugh broke through her tears. I was terrified. You smiled at me once when I was practicing after midnight. I almost forgot how to play. So the next morning I told you your sweater looked like retired oatmeal. I remember that. I liked that sweater. You attacked innocent knitwear. I know. We sat in silence, then she looked at me. When you called me sister last night, it felt like being locked outside my own life. I swallowed. For me, that word was the only door I had. I know. Her voice cracked. I know now. My phone buzzed. Bad timing. I glanced down. Victoria, did the concert conclude safely? Celeste saw the name and her eyes narrowed. Why is Prosecutor Perfect texting you? She asked if the concert ended safely. She means whether I stabbed you with a violin bow. You do look tempted. Only because she texted during my emotional vulnerability. Another buzz. Serena, do not let Celeste keep you out too late. You had elevated stress markers. Celeste gasped. She is using your organs against me. Then Alexandra, the car outside is available if you need transportation. Use it or do not, your choice. Celeste stood. They are all circling. You invited me to a public emotional incident. I did not invite them. You named the piece Unfair Brother. I was upset. You declared war in a program booklet. Her chin lifted. Maybe I did. That was when my phone buzzed again, a group chat created by Celeste, named Not Sisters, members, Alexandra, Victoria, Serena, Celeste, Ethan. Celeste typed, official competition has begun. Victoria, define competition. Serena, absolutely not. He needs sleep. Alexandra, we need rules. Celeste, I hate that I agree with Alexandra. I stared at the screen, then typed, first rule, anyone who violates my boundaries gets blocked for 1 day. Silence, then Alexandra, reasonable. Victoria, define violation. Serena, blocking emergency medical contact is unwise. Celeste, what if the boundary is stupid? I typed, 2 days for arguing. Typing bubbles appeared, all vanished. I smiled. Celeste looked at me like I had just performed magic. You made them stop. For now. She stepped closer. Ethan, yes? I do not want to be your sister. I know. I do not know what I am allowed to be. Neither do I. Can I try badly? That was honest, very Celeste. Yes, I said. But not by hurting me first. Her face softened. I will try. Try better. Then your sweater insults. I love that sweater, you owe it an apology. I will write it a concerto. I laughed. She smiled like she had won something precious. Maybe she had, maybe we both had. Chapter 9, they stopped being sisters in front of everyone. Eleanor's next move was either wisdom or chaos in formal clothing. She hosted a small private adult recognition dinner at Ashford Manor, not a birthday redo, she insisted, but a clarification. I almost refused, then Grace called and said, if you do not attend, they will all attempt private clarification separately, and no house on earth has insurance for that. So I went this time. I arrived in a rideshare. No Ashford driver, no family car, no one waited at the gate to escort me like a returning ward. I walked in through the front entrance because I chose to. The manor felt different, or maybe I did. The long dining table was not used. Instead, Eleanor had arranged a round table in the winter garden, surrounded by glass walls, old citrus trees, and warm lights. No lawyer, no documents, no dead ancestors judging from frames. Alexandra stood near the entrance in a dark green dress, hands clasped. She saw me and did not move immediately. That restraint alone deserved a medal. Ethan, she said. Alexandra. The name changed her face, not much, but enough. Victoria arrived from the side path wearing navy, hair loose for once. Serena stood beside the tea table pretending not to assess my posture. Celeste lingered by the piano in the corner, watching me like she wanted to run forward and had chained herself to dignity. Eleanor lifted a glass. Tonight is simple. Ethan Walker is no longer under my guardianship, formal or informal. He remains dear to this family if he chooses. No one here has a claim on his name, future, residence, affection, or time. Celeste muttered, subtle. Victoria whispered, necessary. The first part of dinner went almost well, almost. An older family cousin, Patricia Ashford, attended because Eleanor claimed someone needed to represent extended family civility. Patricia had white hair, pearls, and the social instincts of a woman who could find a wound through a tuxedo. She looked at me over soup. So, Ethan, how does it feel to be independent at last? The little Ashford brother flying out of the nest. Forks and spoons stopped. I smiled politely out of habit, but before I could answer, Alexandra spoke. Ethan is not a child. Patricia blinked. I only meant affectionately. Victoria set down her spoon. He is not a ward either. Serena's voice was cool, and anyone who treats him like a family accessory should leave before dessert. Celeste leaned over and took my arm. He is Ethan, try remembering that. It's only 5 letters. Patricia looked like she had been slapped by etiquette. I looked at the 4 women. This was new, not hidden protection, not silent notes, not controlling kindness, public correction for me. Eleanor hid a smile behind her glass. Patricia cleared her throat. Of course. Dinner resumed. My pulse did not. Later, music played softly from hidden speakers. Grace brought dessert and Celeste complained that it was too calm. It's custard, Serena said. It has no drama. Food should not have drama. You say that because hospital pudding killed your imagination. Serena looked at me. Do not laugh, it encourages her. I laughed. Celeste looked victorious. When the plates cleared, Eleanor stood. One more thing. I tensed. No folder appeared. Good. Instead, she looked at me. Ethan, there was confusion created by the role my household placed on you. If you choose to continue using familial terms, that is your choice. If you do not, that is also your choice. No one here may demand either. The four women looked at me, not commanding, waiting. That was almost worse. I took a breath. For 3 years, calling you sisters helped me survive being here, I said. Celeste's hand tightened around her napkin. But it also made things unclear for me, maybe for all of us. Victoria's eyes did not leave my face. I do not know what comes next. I am not ready to promise anything. I am not ready to choose anything. But I think I should start calling you by your names. Alexandra's expression softened. Alexandra, I said. She inhaled quietly. Victoria. Victoria nodded once, but her eyes shone. Serena. Serena looked down. Celeste. Celeste whispered, again. I blinked. What? My name, say it again. Serena muttered, dramatic. Celeste snapped, quiet, scalpel witch. Celeste, I said again. She smiled completely, it almost knocked me backward. Then came the dance problem. A small group of musicians, apparently summoned by Eleanor because subtlety had died tonight, began playing near the glass doors. Celeste stood first, I get the first dance. Victoria said, on what legal basis? Artistic urgency. No such basis. Serena said, he just ate dessert, dancing immediately is unwise. Alexandra said, traditionally, the eldest may open a formal dance. Celeste pointed at her. This is not a shareholder ball. No, if it were, the governance would be clearer. Victoria said, we can draw lots. Serena said, absolutely not, randomness is not romance. All four turned to me. Eleanor smiled like a woman watching a very expensive storm from indoors. I stood. I will choose. Silence, good silence, the kind where power changed hands politely. I walked to Grace. She looked startled. Me? You are the only person here who did not turn my birthday into a psychological incident. Grace laughed a real laugh and the 4 Ashford women stared, then one by one accepted it. I danced with Grace first, she was light on her feet and smug as a queen. Excellent choice, she whispered. I thought so. Now prepare for consequences. After Grace, I danced with Eleanor, then Alexandra. She held herself like dancing was a merger she had not prepared for. Relax, I said. I am unfamiliar with not leading. I noticed. She almost smiled. Then Victoria, she counted under her breath for the first minute. Are you calculating steps? No. You are. Yes. Then Serena, you are warm, she said. Humans are. Your pulse is elevated. Do not diagnose the dance. Then Celeste, she did not joke, she took my hand and looked at me as if all the music she had ever played had been practiced for this moment, not trembling. When the song ended, she did not let go immediately, I did not pull away. That night, when I returned to Brooklyn, the group chat had one message from Eleanor, from tonight forward, Ethan belongs to himself. Under it, Celeste replied, yes, but I am still winning. Victoria, no one established a scoring system. Serena, he needs sleep. Alexandra, we need a framework. I typed, no frameworks tonight. 4 replies came instantly, Alexandra, understood. Victoria, understood. Serena, sleep. Celeste, good night, Ethan. Not sister, not little brother, just my name. I slept better than I had in weeks. Chapter 10, I wrote the rules of the war. The rivalry became impossible by Thursday, not dangerous, not cruel, just impossible. Alexandra offered to take me to dinner and sent a list of restaurants categorized by privacy level, nutrition, distance from my apartment, and likelihood of paparazzi presence. Victoria asked whether Saturday afternoon was available and attached a calendar invite titled Informal Walk, no legal purpose. Serena dropped off vitamins with a note that said, this is not pressure, it is D3. Celeste sent a photo of herself outside my campus building holding a sign that said, I am not stalking, I am artistically nearby. Rachel saw the sign and asked, is your life always this genre confused? Yes, I said. By Friday morning, I knew what had to happen. I sent one message to the group chat, my apartment, Saturday 5 p.m., we need rules. Celeste replied first, rules are Victoria's kink. Victoria, that word is inappropriate. Serena, do not use that word before breakfast. Alexandra, I will bring a draft. Me, no drafts. Alexandra, a blank template. Me, no. Victoria, can we at least define agenda items? Me, no agenda. Serena, will there be food? Me, yes. Celeste, can I bring wine? Serena, no. Celeste, I was asking Ethan. Me, one bottle, no dramatic labels. Saturday at 5 p.m., all four. Ashford women entered my apartment one at a time because I made them wait in the hall and knock separately. Alexandra looked impressed, Victoria looked analytical, Serena looked concerned about the stairs, Celeste looked offended by the concept of waiting behind Serena. My living room was not built for four high-powered women, one low table, and unresolved romantic pressure. Alexandra sat in the most stable chair, Victoria chose the edge of the sofa, Serena inspected the kitchen before sitting. Celeste dropped onto the floor beside my bookshelf and immediately found a book to criticize. Urban drainage design, she said. Seductive. Do not flirt with my textbook. I would never, it has no rhythm. I stood by the small table and held up one page, handwritten, not legal, not corporate, not medical, not artistic, my rules. First, I said, no using Ashford power to control my life. Alexandra opened her mouth. I looked at her, she closed it. Second, no investigating my friends, classmates, neighbors, landlord, professors, or future dates unless I ask for help. Victoria looked pained but nodded. Third, no surprise medical appointments, health tracking, or body monitoring without consent. Serena said, what if you are clearly ill? You may say you are worried. Then I decide. Her jaw tightened, then she nodded. Fourth, no public emotional warfare using concerts, press events, social media, or paparazzi-adjacent behavior. Celeste raised a hand. Define warfare. Naming a piece unfair, brother. That was art. That was warfare. Fine. Fifth, no entering my apartment without permission. Alexandra said, emergency exceptions? Actual emergencies only, emotional panic does not count. Celeste muttered, oppressive. 2 days blocked for arguing. She made a zipping motion across her mouth. Sixth, no sabotaging each other. They all looked far too innocent. Celeste. What? Do not pretend. I have sabotaged no one. Serena said, you told a reporter Alexandra was dating a hedge fund manager, so she had to spend 2 hours denying it. That was not sabotage, that was community theater. Alexandra's eyes narrowed. That was you. Focus, I said. Celeste looked away. Seventh, I am allowed to say no without providing a full explanation. Victoria nodded. First, that is important. Eighth, you can ask for time with me, ask, not schedule, assign, diagnose, summon, or ambush. Alexandra murmured, this is about the restaurant matrix. It is about all of you. Serena looked at the page. And what do we receive? That question surprised me. What do you mean? If we follow the rules, she said, what are you offering? The room stilled, fair, painfully fair. I had written rules for their behavior, not my own. I will be honest, I said slowly. If I feel overwhelmed, I will say so instead of disappearing. If I enjoy time with you, I will not hide it because I am afraid of giving the wrong idea. I will not punish one of you for what another did, and I will not use the word sister as a shield anymore. Celeste's face softened, Alexandra looked down, Victoria whispered, that is fair. Serena said, add it to the page. So I did. Then Alexandra asked, do we sign? Victoria said, it is not a contract. A signature can still symbolize consent. Celeste gasped, I hate that I agree. Serena held out a pen. They signed all four. Alexandra's signature clean and controlled, Victoria's precise, Serena's sharp, Celeste's dramatic enough to be a logo. Then I signed last, Ethan Walker. The page looked ridiculous, it also looked like freedom. Dinner was pasta because that was what I could afford and cook reliably. Serena inspected the vegetables, Alexandra asked before helping set the table. Victoria tried to carry plates and looked oddly proud when nothing broke. Celeste opened wine and did not make a speech, which I considered personal growth. For an hour, things felt almost normal. Then Grace appeared at the door. I opened it, stunned. How did you get here? I used a taxi like a woman of mystery. She carried a cake. Behind her stood Eleanor with a bottle of wine. I stared. Did you two just ambush my boundaries? Grace handed me the cake. Family elders are not contestants. Eleanor looked into the apartment. May we enter? The question mattered, I stepped aside. Yes. The apartment became crowded and loud. Alexandra washed dishes incorrectly, Serena corrected her, Victoria dried plates like each one had evidentiary value. Celeste tried to choose music and was banned after selecting something emotionally accurate that sounded like a romantic siege. Grace sat at the table like a satisfied general. Eleanor looked at the signed rules. "Good," she said. "You approve?" "I approve of anything that prevents my daughters from turning affection into property damage." Celeste shouted from the kitchen, "I heard that. You were meant to." Later, after Eleanor and Grace left, the four women stood near the door. There was a strange reluctance in the room. No one wanted to leave first, so I said, "Good night." Alexandra nodded, Victoria did too. Serena reminded me to lock the door, then stopped and said, "Would you please lock the door?" Celeste stepped close. "Can I say something dramatic?" "No." She said it anyway, "I like this apartment because it's yours. I hate it because it's not ours." I did not know what to say. She smiled sadly. "I know. Good night, Ethan." They left. I locked the door. My apartment was quiet again, but not empty. On the table, the signed rules waited beneath the lamp for the first time. The Ashford women had agreed to terms I wrote, not because they owned me, but because they wanted me to stay close enough to choose. Chapter 11. The manor was not home until I chose it. The old greenhouse at Ashford Manor had been closed since before I arrived. It sat behind the east garden. A long glass structure with rusted iron ribs, cracked panes, broken vents, and vines growing through places where wealth had lost interest. I loved it from the first time I saw it. A forgotten space is different from an empty one. Empty means nothing is there. But forgotten means something waited too long. Eleanor asked me to restore it in October, professionally. That was the word she used, not family favor, not little project, professional commission. I arrived with a contract, a project estimate, and my faculty advisor's review notes. Alexandra read the estimate and did not negotiate. Victoria reviewed the contract and only asked if I had independent counsel. Serena brought work gloves and asked before checking a cut on my finger. Celeste appeared in sunglasses and announced she would be my assistant. "You do not know how to restore glass," I said. "I know beauty. You are holding the measuring tape backward. Beauty is not arithmetic." Serena muttered, "That explains your finances." Celeste gasped. Alexandra looked at the rusted frame. "Can it be repaired?" "Yes." "Cost?" I named the number. She nodded, no comment, no attempt to upgrade everything. I looked at her. She said, "I am practicing." Good. For 3 weeks, the greenhouse became neutral ground. I worked there between university responsibilities. Sometimes one of them came by, sometimes two. Once all four arrived and I threatened to impose a scheduling system. Victoria looked far too pleased, so I withdrew the threat. The work was physical, honest. My hands became scratched. Serena hovered until I said her name sharply, then she backed off and brought bandages without applying them. Progress. Alexandra handled vendor calls only when I asked. Victoria helped research historic preservation requirements and did not turn it into a trial. Celeste actually became useful at cleaning old decorative panels once she accepted that gloves could be fashionable. Serena installed a first aid station and labeled it available, not mandatory. One afternoon, I found the first hidden thing. Behind a loose brick near the potting bench was a rolled sketch, my sketch. A concept drawing I had made 2 years earlier for converting abandoned greenhouses into community reading spaces. On the back, Alexandra had written, "His best work is always about shelter." I sat on an overturned crate holding the paper. Alexandra found me. "I forgot that was there," she said. "You hid it." I did not hide it, I stored it privately in an unreasonable location. That is hiding. Yes. Why? I like seeing it here. I looked at her. She stood in the afternoon light, expensive coat dusted with rust flakes, looking less untouchable than she used to. "I thought if I praised you too much, you would feel obligated to stay close, so I said nothing." Yes, that was not better. I know. She sat beside me on the crate, which looked terrified but held. "I am proud of you," she said. The words were simple, too late still needed. "Thank you," I said. 2 days later, Victoria found the second hidden thing, a sealed flash drive taped beneath an old shelf. On it was security footage from a charity event where 2 heirs from another family mocked my background and discussed whether getting me drunk would produce useful stories about the Ashfords. I had no memory of hearing about it. Victoria had handled it. The 2 men had disappeared from my social circle. I confronted her in the greenhouse. "You kept the footage." "Yes." "Why?" "In case they returned." "You could have told me." "I should have." "Why did you not?" Because I thought telling you would make you feel hunted. Instead, not telling me made me feel stupid for not noticing. She closed her eyes. Yes. I handed the drive back. Destroy it. Her eyes opened. You are sure? Yes, I do not want to build my life around people who already lost access to me. She nodded. I will. And Victoria? Yes? Thank you for protecting me then. Her face softened. You are welcome. The third hidden thing belonged to Serena in a locked cabinet near the greenhouse office, behind old garden records. She had stored a copy of my rehabilitation plan with handwritten notes, not medical instructions. Personal ones: do not call him fragile. Ask before touching scar. He hates being watched when he struggles with stairs. He smiles when in pain, do not trust smile. That one made me sit down. Serena found me reading it. She looked stricken. I should have destroyed that. No. I was trying to learn how not to hurt you. You still did sometimes. Yes, but you were trying. She nodded. The quiet between us felt softer than usual. I said, I hated that you saw how weak I was. Her expression changed completely. I never thought you were weak, Ethan. I thought surviving hurt that badly and still being gentle was the strongest thing I had ever seen. I could not look at her for a moment. She knelt in front of me, slowly enough that I could move away. I did not. I am sorry I made my fear sound like criticism, she said. I nodded. Then Celeste found me before I could recover. She did not have a hidden document. She had a confession carved into the glass, small letters near the lower frame, nearly invisible unless light struck them from the side, E.W. I touched the letters. Celeste stood behind me. I did that the first winter, with a ring, with a hairpin. Why? I was angry at myself. You were in the greenhouse sketching and the light was on your face and I wanted to sit beside you. Instead, I told you your pencil grip was ugly. I remember. I carved your initials after you left because I was too much of a coward to say your name kindly. I looked at the tiny marks, not vandalism, evidence. You really were terrible at this. She gave a wet laugh. The worst. The greenhouse reopened at the end of the month, not as a showpiece, but as a reading and design space for students supported by the Ashford Foundation. My contract was paid, my name was on the restoration plaque, Ethan Walker, restoration design lead, not adopted son, not ward, not little brother, professional, chosen. At the opening, Eleanor asked if I would consider taking my old room at the manor again whenever I wanted. Before I could answer, Alexandra said, only if he wants. Victoria added, and with no expectation. Serena said, the mattress is better there, but that is information, not pressure. Celeste said, I vote pressure. I looked at her, she sighed. Fine, no pressure. I smiled. I will visit, I said, but I am not moving back. Four faces fell in 4 different ways. I kept going. This place can matter to me. You can matter to me, but I need a door I can open and close myself. Alexandra nodded first, Victoria next, Serena after a long breath, Celeste last, reluctantly. Grace, standing near the orchids, wiped her eyes and pretended it was dust. That night, before I left, each of them gave me a key. Alexandra's opened a private design studio in one of the city buildings, available only if I wanted to use it. Victoria's opened a locked archive of records related to my parents and the legal history Eleanor had preserved, available whenever I wanted answers. Serena's opened a small medical file box containing my own records, transferred fully to my possession. Celeste gave me nothing, it was a decorative key on a ribbon. What does this open? I asked. She looked embarrassed. My violin case. I stared, she looked away. In case you ever want to put another ugly thing in it. I held the key carefully, then said, Celeste, I would like that. Her smile made the greenhouse feel warm. Chapter 12, Do Not Call Them Sisters. The greenhouse dinner happened 1 month after my birthday. No lawyer, no cream folder, no long table, no public statement about independence, just a round table under repaired glass. Surrounded by citrus trees, climbing ivy, warm lights, and 4 women who were trying very hard not to turn dinner into a competition before the salad arrived. They failed. After 8 minutes, Alexandra had arranged the catering but asked me to approve the menu first. Victoria had not reviewed the guest list because there was no guest list. Serena had allowed dessert without making a speech about sugar, although she looked like it cost her. Celeste had placed herself near the chair beside mine and then pretended the seating was accidental. Grace oversaw everything from a distance with Eleanor. I suspected they had placed bets. I sat at the table and looked at the four of them, Alexandra in deep blue, elegant and controlled but no longer untouchable. Victoria in gray, posture perfect, eyes less guarded, Serena in white, cool and sharp, but her hands gentle when she passed me water, Celeste in red, dramatic, beautiful, and watching me like she might set the greenhouse on fire if ignored too long. A month earlier, I would have called them my sisters because that was the only language the house allowed me. Now the word felt too small, also too safe. Alexandra asked, "How is the campus project?" "Good, we finished the shelter model." "May I see it sometime?" I looked at her. She added quickly, "If you want to show me." I smiled. "Yes." Victoria said, "Rachel is on that project, correct?" The table went still. Victoria took a breath. "I am asking conversationally, not investigatively." Celeste whispered, "Growth." Victoria ignored her. "Yes," I said. "Rachel is on the project. I hope it goes well." No follow-up questions, no risk category, progress. Serena placed a small packet beside my plate. I looked at it. She said, "Cold medicine, you sounded congested yesterday. Take it if you need it, ignore it if you do not." I stared. She looked pained but held herself back. "Thank you," I said. Celeste leaned closer. "I wrote something new. Should I be afraid?" "No, it is not public warfare." "What is it called?" She hesitated. "Glass house." I looked around the greenhouse. "That sounds beautiful." "It is. So modest." "I am very modest, everyone says so." "No one has ever said so." "I implied it." "Everyone." I laughed. She looked satisfied. During dinner, Eleanor stood and lifted her glass. "I will say very little because for once this family has produced enough words without my management." Grace murmured, "A miracle." Eleanor continued, "Ethan, you entered this house at a time of pain. We offered safety, but not always warmth. You gave this family more life than we knew how to receive. I am grateful you chose to return tonight on your own terms." I swallowed. "Thank you, Eleanor." Her eyes shone at the name. We ate, we talked, not perfectly. Alexandra still slipped into logistics twice, Victoria corrected her own phrasing 3 times, Serena nearly asked about my sleep and visibly suffered through not doing it. Celeste kicked my chair once because I complimented Serena's medical restraint. Under the table, I kicked back. She beamed. After dinner, Grace and Eleanor withdrew to the far end of the greenhouse, leaving the 5 of us under the lights. I knew they were still listening. They knew I knew, everyone allowed the lie. Alexandra placed her hands on the table. "I would like to say something." Celeste groaned. "If this is a CEO speech, I am leaving emotionally." Alexandra looked at her. "I am not making a speech. You look like a quarterly report that learned remorse." "Celeste," I raised a hand. "Let her speak." Celeste leaned back, muttering. Alexandra looked at me. "I spent 3 years giving you things when I should have asked what you wanted. I cannot undo that. I can only promise that from now on, I will ask before I enter, before I arrange, before I protect, before I fix. I still want to fix everything that will not vanish, but I want you to choose me, if you ever do, without feeling bought by comfort." The honesty in that sentence was heavy. "Thank you," I said. Victoria spoke next. "I treated uncertainty as danger. I treated people around you as threats because some were. But I understand now that if I narrow your world to keep you safe, I become another threat to your freedom." Celeste whispered, "That was almost poetic." Victoria said, "Do not interrupt my emotional development." I laughed. Victoria's mouth softened. "I would like to be invited into your life," she said to me, "not because I have cleared myself as low risk, but because I want to be there." Serena looked down at her hands before speaking. "I still worry about your health. I will probably always notice if you are tired or limping or lying about pain. But I will try to say I am worried instead of turning you into a patient." I smiled. "That would help." She looked at me directly. "I am worried often because I care, not because I think you are weak." "I know that now." Her breath caught softly. Celeste stood last. Of course she stood. "I am not mature enough for a speech." Serena muttered, "Accurate." Celeste pointed at her. "I am choosing vulnerability, do not heckle." Then she turned to me. "I was mean because I wanted you to look at me and was terrified you would. That is stupid. I know. I am still going to be dramatic. I am still going to write music with titles everyone pretends not to understand, but I will not hurt you on purpose to hide that I want you." Her eyes were bright. I want you to look at me, Ethan, not as your sister, as me. There it was, 4 women, for confessions, for kinds of love that had once looked like coldness. I stood, they all stopped breathing. I need to say something clearly, I said. Alexandra nodded, Victoria folded her hands, Serena went very still, Celeste looked ready to either faint or declare war on oxygen. I am not choosing tonight. Celeste exhaled like she had been stabbed. And I am not going to pretend this is simple just because all of us are adults now. 3 years of misunderstanding do not disappear because the word sister does. They listened, that was new too. But I am not leaving because I think I am unwanted anymore. Alexandra's eyes closed briefly, Victoria looked down, Serena's hand covered her mouth, Celeste whispered, good. I am keeping my apartment, my work, my life. I will come here when I choose. I will see each of you when I choose. I will say no when I need to. And if any of you forget the rules, I will remind you. Celeste raised her hand. Can reminders be affectionate? No. Harsh? I looked at them one by one, Alexandra, her face softened. Victoria, she nodded, Serena, her eyes shone, Celeste, she smiled through tears. I will not call you sisters anymore, I said, not because the past meant nothing, but because I do not want to hide in that word either. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Celeste came around the table and hugged me, she did ask with her eyes first, barely, but she did, I nodded. She wrapped her arms around me and shook once. Then Serena stood. I would also like one. Celeste did not let go. Wait your turn, doctor. Victoria said, there should be an order. Alexandra said, perhaps we should not overwhelm him. Celeste said into my shoulder, I am overwhelming him first. I laughed, the sound broke the tension. Eventually, I hugged all 4 of them, Alexandra held me carefully, like she was afraid strength might become control, Victoria held me briefly, then longer when I did not pull away. Serena held me with one hand at my back, exactly where the old injury would not hurt, Celeste held me twice and claimed the second was for musical closure. When I left that night, no one tried to keep me. Alexandra asked if I had transportation. Victoria asked if I wanted company to the car, Serena asked if I had taken a coat, then stopped and added, may I ask that? Yes, I said. Celeste said, text me when you get home. Serena looked offended. I was going to ask that. Victoria said, we all were. Alexandra said, perhaps one group message. I smiled. I will text the group. Celeste looked victorious anyway. In the rideshare, I looked back at the greenhouse, 4 figures stood beneath the glass. Not hiding in separate windows this time, together, watching me leave because I chose to, not because they had driven me away. When I reached Brooklyn, I sent one message, home. 4 replies came instantly, Alexandra, good. Sleep well. Victoria, thank you for telling us. Serena, drink water. Please. Celeste, I miss you already, this is your fault. I laughed in my small apartment under the crooked curtain rod Alexandra had helped fix. With Serena's cold medicine on the table, Victoria's torn-up instincts slowly becoming trust, and Celeste's music file waiting on my phone. I had once believed the Ashford sisters never wanted me, then I learned they wanted me so badly they had hidden it in the worst possible ways. I did not become theirs that night, that mattered. Instead, they began learning how to become part of my life without owning it, and I began learning that being wanted did not have to mean being trapped. The next morning, the group chat name changed, Celeste changed it, obviously, from Not Sisters to Ethan Defense Committee. Victoria immediately objected, Serena said, the name implies an emergency response function. Alexandra suggested a more elegant alternative. I changed it myself, names only. No titles, no shields, no pretending, just Alexandra, Victoria, Serena, Celeste, and me. A man can survive a house that never tells him he is loved, but he should not have to stay there. And when he finally leaves, the people who want him must do more than open the gate, they must learn to knock. If 4 people hid their love so badly that it felt like rejection, would you give them a chance to prove it? And if you finally stop being someone's little brother, what rules would you write before letting them close again?